Good afternoon. My name is Ed Manlove, and I want to talk to you today about test automation using Robot Framework. I've been a long-time Robot Framework user myself, starting back in about 2011, where I started to learn about Robot Framework through the Selenium library. Then I became both a contributor and a leader within the Robot Framework community. I've worked with several other organizations trying to build up their test automation using Robot Framework. So let's get started. I'm going to use this construct of this question, what is Robot Framework, to help guide us through our discussion. So what is Robot Framework? Well, Robot Framework is a natural language testing framework. Let me describe to you what I mean by natural language. Here's an example of a Robot Framework script. We've got two test cases. We've got the test cases marked out by a section header. So that's line 1 there. This is basically just a simple text file. In our two test cases, we're verifying a discount coupon works within the shopping cart. We're also verifying the discount coupon works at checkout, line 10 there. That's the beginning of our second test case. And each of those indented lines underneath them are our test steps. These are essentially what we call keywords, which I'll talk a little bit more about shortly. But these are keywords or steps that make up an entire test case. So in the first test case, I'm navigating to a store, adding an item to the cart, then I'm viewing that cart, and here I'm putting in a discount coupon during my operation in the cart. Then I'm verifying that both the discount was accepted and it was correctly calculated. So this is my two test cases. So Robot Framework being natural language means that we can use test steps or really create test steps that sound as if they are within the language of our test plan or maybe the language within our domain. And so we've got some advantages there, right? Our advantages is that our tests are written in the domain language. So if you have a specialized domain where you've got a language that you've spoken within your office, Robot Framework is a really wonderful framework for this. It allows you to write your test cases just as you would be talking about the domain or the area of which you are working within. We also have, because of this natural language and because of the description in it, we actually have our automation scripts really documenting the tests themselves. So maybe instead of writing out both test plans and automation scripts, you have Robot Framework, which allows you then to write out your test scripts as if you were writing out your test plans. Now, I've mentioned that Robot Framework is a keyword-driven language. So let's talk a little bit more about what that means, that's keyword-driven, or what a keyword is. A keyword is essentially a step within our test case. So we've got several keywords here. That first test case, verifying the coupon works within the shopping cart, has, as I count them, 6 test steps, or 6 keywords. These are keywords that I created, keywords that I wrote to describe the actions I want to be taking in my test case. Now, underlying these keywords are other keywords, and those keywords are used for describing actions that I want to do. Now, in this example, this is actually doing web testing. So we'll start to see some keywords that are more specific to interacting with a browser. Let's take a look at those. Here, we've got 2 keywords. We've got navigate to the ATID demo store, and the second keyword, view the shopping cart. And similar to our test cases, our steps within our keywords are indented. And these 2 are also keywords themselves. We have open browser keyword and the click link keyword. Both of these come from what we will call the Selenium library. I'll talk about libraries in a little bit. But these are very descriptive keywords that hide some underlying browser interactions. We see here, just as we had in our test cases, a section header. Here we have a section header, line 25 there, that separates out our keywords from our test cases. Now we can have keywords that call other keywords that in turn can call other keywords. We can basically nest our keywords. And this is really the power of Robot Framework and the keyword-driven framework. So at a very high level, I might have a step in my test case that add the black hoodie to the cart, and that could be a keyword that I've created. And I've created a few more keywords that kind of give me steps to that. So to add a hoodie to the cart, I might need to search through the products for hoodies. Then maybe if I'm given multiple choices, I'm going to select the one hoodie product, and then finally I'm going to add it to the cart. And so here are those two keywords, two of the three keywords. One, we're searching for products, and the second one, we're selecting a product. The second one, selecting a product on line 42 there, I actually have the option to put in a variable within my keyword name. So I might say select black hoodie product, or maybe in a test case I might need to say select the white hoodie product or select the blue hoodie product. And I can vary whatever I want. Maybe it says actually select the shoes product. So I can actually have a variable within my keyword name. And this is all power of the Robot Framework language. And so keywords, some of those advantages are keywords act like functions. We also have reuse within our keywords. So by using this concept of programming, what we do is we start to think about this as a programming language. So we could think of Robot Framework, again, as a keyword-driven language, but think of it as a programming language, where keywords are kind of our base syntax or construct for building up our other keywords, or building up our test cases, or building up our test automation suite. And so because it is a programming language, a natural language programming language, it has that flexibility. And flexibility really comes with that ability to program. Now, on top of that, we also have with that flexibility the ability to misuse or to poorly use the language. So one of the problems with natural language is you can have it where maybe you're using all your low-lying keywords, like the library keywords for doing web testing. So your test case could look like click this, click that, navigate to this page, click this button, edit this, input text. Or you could have it in what we'll call the declarative style. So we could have it navigate to the store, view the products, select the product, go to the shopping cart, check out, verify I have the product delivered, right? So we can actually use this declarative style. And so Titus Fortner gives a wonderful, wonderful talk that I recommend everybody, and it will be in the resources that you'll see down below on some of my slides. We have a repo. I've got a repo where you can get further information. But Titus Fortner gives this wonderful talk about, the cautionary tale of using Robot Framework. And he's right. We really need to have people use a declarative style over not the imperative style, right? Use these natural language constructs instead of the click this, click that, click this at the highest level of test. But there's a flexibility. It's a programming language. We want to use it properly. We also have the ability, one of the recommendations that we have is to hide our logic into low-level keywords, or maybe even move that logic out to the Python code. So Robot Framework, being a programming language, has both best practices and then practices that, because it's a flexible programming language, one can misuse. And we recommend you to best use it. So beyond it being a programming language, Robot Framework is a natural language testing framework. And a framework, when I start to think about a testing framework, I think of a couple different things. A framework has functionality, and a framework is extendable, right? So a framework basically gives you the base to work with, and then you extend it out beyond the base. Maybe you only use the base functionality, but it is also extendable. So I think Robot Framework is these three things. It's a fully functional testing framework. So it comes to you with a lot of built-in functionality to do testing in many different areas. But it's also an extendable framework. And this is key. This allows you to take it out into any area. Maybe ones that a lot of people work in, like web testing or API testing, maybe doing application testing, what we would call a thick client on our Linux machine, our Mac machine, or maybe our Windows machine, or extend it out even further into something where someone maybe has never done anything before. Maybe I've got an embedded system. We have people that use Robot Framework for embedded system. So if you want to test your ice cream machine, I will be the one to come and help you test your ice cream machine with Robot Framework, right? It can be applied to many different domains. And let's look at that, right? So out of the box, we've got several pieces of functionality. Core to it is a test runner. In Robot Framework, this is actually a pretty simple test runner. It is a executable. So we can apply it and execute it under any operating system, any major operating system, and run our tests. Also, we get a lot of reporting. And this is one area that Robot Framework really excels at. And also when I hear feedback about all the positives about Robot Framework, a lot of it comes with its reporting capability. It gives really good detailed, both kind of a detailed step through your test scripts and where things passed and where things failed. But we also have a high level summary. So it gives really good base reporting out of your system. It also includes, as I would expect in any testing framework, a really good ability to both give you steps and allow you to create steps to set up your test cases, and then once they're done, to tear them down. It gives us the ability to do tagging, very important, so that you can categorize and separate out and really organize your tests and your test cases. We also have an API. So this API opens us up to be even more extendable. And we see that. Out in the community, we have a lot of different people adding on top of the base robot framework. So they add in customized reporting or dashboarding. There are several great open source and even proprietary sources of dashboarding systems or even issue trackers, right? So Robot Framework, being a framework and being something that is on top of a programming language, allows us to make inroads and connections to the rest of our test automation systems. If you think about it, all our test automation systems really are expansive. They're not just a single tool, but they're really a system. So we also have plugins for those CI/CD systems. And finally, one part that I really like to mention is this data driver. So we have this ability to take data from many different sources and create a matrix of test cases out of your data. So I can write a single test case that I need to run a lot of different data through, same steps, different data, and so I'll use this data driver. It's a really exciting tool, and this was a tool built by a user in the community and also a leader in the community. This is actually such a tool that I actually want to try to get into our core, right? And so we think about that. With Robot Framework, we've got a core. Robot Framework in the core basically comes with a lot of tools and keywords and structures and syntax to build up your base test case. But maybe you're doing specific type of testing. Maybe you're doing web testing, or maybe you're doing some other type of testing. Maybe it's database testing or RPA testing. Maybe you're doing some protocol language, or as I mentioned, maybe an application on a Windows. We have this ecosystem of libraries. Libraries are essentially a plug-in to Robot Framework and allows you to take it out into any area. The libraries provide you kind of two aspects. One, they provide you this aspect of keywords, but they also provide you this aspect of a programming language. So I can, as an end user, if I'm working in a special area, maybe testing ice cream machines, I might have some underlying code I'll create in my library for my users to use. And then I'll also have high-level keywords for those users who are creating those test cases. So Robot Framework's extendable into this ecosystem of libraries. And it's important to add in here, we can actually even connect into Sauce Labs. So our ability to connect into Sauce Labs comes in kind of two ways. One, as anybody who has done web testing might have experienced if you start to looking at using Sauce Labs service, is that you can navigate to a server on their system and run your tests on their system. So you can do that just as you would in almost any other programming language which you're using for doing your web testing. So we've got that. We also have this great library and these great tools that Josh Grant, a applications engineer there at Sauce Labs, has created that even adds on more functionality. So we see that extendability goes out, and we can work with partners like Sauce Labs. One of the things I hear a lot when we talk about Robot Framework is its ease of use and ease of entry into it. Because it's a natural language, and even here we see some of those keywords down lines 39 and 40 that come from the Selenium library. Here again, testing through the web, I'm inputting text and collecting elements. Some people say, well, is it a no-code solution, right? Is this where does Robot Framework fit? And I say it's not a no-code solution, but the next question is, where is it in this spectrum of no code to all the way up to all code? And let me take you quickly through where I think that lies in. But first, let me give some definitions. Now, these might not be how you describe it, but I'm going to use these so that we can have a common understanding. No code for me means that we cannot modify, extract, update, or underline the script or code. Not at all. You have no opportunity to. It's either not provided to you, or you might see it a little bit, but you can't change it. We also have jumping all the way up into the middle there, it's kind of this 50-50 code. You might have two or more languages that make up a script. Maybe think about Cucumber here. Or we also have at the far end is we have this only code or all code, right? Our entire script is written in a single programming language. Now there's one more part in here that I have not yet described, low code. And I haven't described it because I think low code actually gets divided amongst itself. There's kind of two sections. And this is how I talk about it. I think there's part of low code that is limited change. You might have a system that gives you access to code, but you have very limited ability to change it. And to run that changed code, you have to kind of go through a very limited interface, and you have very tight restrictions on how much you can change it. So that's more on the no-code side. Then I think there's also this layered access. You have the ability to change the code, but it just kind of comes in a layered sense. So where does, in this spectrum, Robot Framework lie? And this is where I think it lies. I think it lies all the way in this low code, kind of the layered access part, all the way up to only code. It spans that entire spectrum. To give you some perspective, I think Cucumber, which is another tool that gets closely related and talked about when we're talking about Robot Framework, mostly because of this kind of natural language, is I think it falls within this 50-50 code. It kind of has the front end layer that has a natural language, the Gherkin style, and then it's got the back end glue code that's usually in a programming language like Java or Python. Now you might say, Ed, how does Robot Framework extend all the way out to only code? And what's interesting here is, yes, you can do it with keywords, or you can do it with both keywords and underlying libraries. But I don't need those underlying, I don't need to be writing Python code to have it. I've got libraries that maybe somebody else has written that I can do all my code in just this natural language keywords. So I think Robot Framework really spreads that entire spectrum. Finally, Robot Framework is a tool. It's a tool in your toolbox. And when we talk about test automation, there's a lot of different tools. Here's just a sampling of them. But there are more and more tools. And so there are areas where I think Robot Framework really excels, and I agree. Some people find robot framework and the natural language style just not for them. And that's all right. It's okay because it's just a tool that you can use to grow with and grow your test automation. And I'll be almost forgetting to say, the original title of this talk was Test Automation and RPA. Robot framework can actually be used for robotic process automation, basically doing business processes. If you're not familiar with RPA or robotic process automation, let me describe it to you. Test automation, what I describe is automating steps and validating results. We're doing this testing and we're doing this automation. Robotic process automation is basically automating steps, generally a business process you're trying to automate. So with Robot Framework, not only can you do test automation, but you can actually very easily do robotic process automation. Finally, Robot Framework is a community. And when we think about this, there is some of the things that we think about as community, right? We are a group of people that come together here at our Robot Framework conference, RoboCon, that we hold every year in Helsinki. And we get together and we share our knowledge and our expertise in how to use Robot Framework. But one of the keys about being a community, and one of the things that I, and particularly as a leader in this community, try to do, is expand ourselves out. We're not just a Robot Framework community. We're a community that works within the testing community. We work within the test automation community. We work within the natural language testing frameworks. I've actually had great conversations with some of the leaders within the Cucumber community and talk about, where can we start to collaborate? Where are we doing things similar? We can learn from each other. There's a lot of opportunities for not only just thinking about Robot Framework, but thinking about all of test automation and where that goes out. I even think it goes out even further. Because it's a natural language, I think about rules engines, places where there's a domain language. How do we learn from those areas, and how does Robot Framework contribute to those areas? Speech and command systems, our Siri systems, our Amazon Echo systems. How do those relate to our knowledge and our ability to write these natural language test cases? And how do we learn to communicate within our test automation? Finally, we're also trying to grow as a community. So we listen to our community. And one of the things that we've heard, and in particular this year we're working on building, is building our education, right? I talked about this low code. Many people I hear come into Robot Framework because of its ease of use. They think of it as only a low code solution. But I think there's a cautionary tale. Test automation is really a programming exercise. Ultimately, I think when you're doing test automation, you need someone on your team, whether it's the testers, whether it's someone on the larger team that has some programming background. So you're thinking about programming. So you need to build up those skills. And so we, as a specific kind of testing community, as a Robot Framework community, are working to expand out our education. We want to build up education, not just for now, but what's the growth plan for our users? How are they trying to grow in their test automation, right? What's the full need of those users? And shouldn't we just not, we shouldn't be just training great Robot Framework automators, but also expanding out and really training and developing our individuals and our users to be great testers and great programmers, right? There's some even things that, because it's a natural language and because it's layered, we can even do. We're working on better error handling and error messages, right? Expanding. That's kind of an internal tool that helps you grow and understand. This idea that we hear also that Robot Framework sometimes makes the hard things harder. I've experienced that myself. And so we're working on those. How do we ease the development of the scripts? And how do we help with the debugging of scripts? Comes into play because we are a natural language framework. We are layered. It has its advantages, it has its disadvantages, but we're always improving. Not only ourselves, but we want to improve the entire test automation community. So a couple of takeaway resources. I'm going to give you two now. We'll also have resources on the GitHub site. And so we've got the robot framework community. We've got our main robotframework.org, which we've got a lot of different resources on how to get started, and these community resources. We've got the forum and the Slack channel, great places for people that a lot of our community kind of comes together and works together to help each other. And if you want to go from kind of this high level view of Robot Framework into a, I want to try it out, I encourage everybody to take this Test Automation University. Test Automation University is a great place for learning a lot of different aspects and a lot of different tools for do test automation. And Paul Merrill here has put out this great course on Introduction to Robot Framework. And it's a great one to kind of go through and learn the very basics and introduction and doing hands-on work with Robot Framework. So finally, there it is on the bottom. Here's my GitHub repository. If you're interested in learning more about Robot Framework, please come on out. Come out to our Slack channel. Ask us questions. If you have anything, please ask us. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen what I have to share about this tool, Robot Framework, and I greatly appreciate everybody at Sauce Labs, and I wish you all the best and enjoy your time at SauceCon. Take care.